Every suitor fled from the alien queen's rage, until a human mechanic just hugged her. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. Across the galaxy, tales were whispered of the fearsome sovereign Nyxera, ruler of the Lamidian Empire, whose legendary fury had sent countless potential mates fleeing in terror. But no one could have predicted that the solution would come in the form of a human repair technician with grease-stained hands and an unusually compassionate heart. The royal palace of Lamidiria was considered one of the most magnificent structures in the known universe. Suspended in the upper atmosphere of the gas giant Azura Prime, the gleaming citadel looked like a constellation of diamonds arranged in impossible geometric patterns, held aloft by ancient gravitational technology that predated even the Lamidian civilization itself. Today, however, the usual ethereal peace of the palace was shattered by a piercing scream that sent the royal staff scurrying for cover. "Incompetent fools! All of you!" Queen Nyxera roared, her voice carrying through the crystalline corridors as she hurled a priceless artifact against the wall of her private chambers. The delicate sculpture, a gift from the proconsul of Rigel 7, shattered into 1,000 gleaming shards. "You dare to present me with yet another simpering, spineless excuse for a suitor? Do you think I have nothing better to do than waste my time with these pathetic specimens?" The royal matchmaker, Minister Thalios, cowered behind a decorative pillar. As the oldest member of the court, he had served 3 generations of Lamidian royalty, but none had tested his patience or his courage, quite like Queen Nyxera. "Your Radiance," Thalios ventured cautiously, his voice quavering. "Prince Dorivan of the Celestial Houses is considered the most eligible bachelor in 3-star systems. His lineage is impeccable, and his contributions to astrophysics have revolutionized interstellar travel." He squeaked. "Thalios." Nyxera spat, her eyes flashing with dangerous luminescence. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her translucent skin pulsed with angry red waves, a clear warning sign to anyone familiar with Lamidian physiology. He actually squeaked when I asked him about his views on military expansion. Then he fainted when I raised my voice. Fainted? What use would such a weakling be to me or to Lamidiria? Nyxera stalked to the massive viewport that dominated one wall of her chambers. Below her, the swirling azure and violet gases of Azura Prime created a perpetually shifting canvas of cosmic beauty. The view usually calmed her, but today nothing could soothe her frustration. At 32 stellar cycles, Nyxera was approaching the age when Lamidian tradition dictated she should choose a consort. The problem was not a lack of suitors, quite the opposite. As ruler of an empire spanning 27 star systems, with wealth beyond measure and beauty that poets struggled to capture in words, Nyxera had no shortage of potential mates. What she lacked was someone worthy of standing beside her. "Find me someone with a spine, Thalios," she said, her voice quieter now, but no less intense. "Someone who does not tremble at the sound of my voice or dissolve into flattery at the sight of my face. Is that truly so much to ask?" Thalios straightened his ceremonial robes, trying to recover some dignity. "Your Majesty, perhaps if you would consider moderating your approach? The intimidation ritual is traditional for Lamidian courtship, yes, but your enthusiasm for the tradition has gained something of a reputation." Nyxera whirled to face him, her 7-foot-tall frame towering over the elderly minister. "Moderate? I should present myself as meek and docile to attract a mate, only to reveal my true nature after the bonding ceremony? Begin our union with deception." She laughed bitterly. "That is not the Lamidian way, nor is it my way. I will have a consort who accepts me as I am, or I will have none at all." Before Thalios could respond, a tremendous crash echoed through the palace, followed by the blare of alarms. Nyxera's hand flew to the ceremonial dagger at her hip, a reflex born of years of training and the assassination attempts that had marred her early reign. The captain of her royal guard, Keld, burst into the chamber, his crystalline armor reflecting the emergency lights pulsing throughout the palace. "Your Radiance, there has been an accident in the Western Atmospheric Docking Bay," Keld reported, his voice clipped and professional. "One of the maintenance vessels has experienced a catastrophic gravitational failure. It crashed through 3 levels of the palace before coming to rest in the ancestral hall. There are reports of injuries, but no fatalities. Nixera's anger refocused instantly. How is this possible? Our docking systems have redundancies upon redundancies. Unknown, Your Radiance. The vessel is not of Lamidian origin. It appears to be a human repair ship that was contracted to service the atmospheric stabilizers. Nixera's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with surprise. Humans? Here, in the royal palace? Who authorized this? Phalios cleared his throat nervously. That would be me, Your Radiance. The quantum harmonizers in the atmospheric stabilizers required specialized maintenance. The human technicians from Terran Mechanics Guild are widely regarded as the best in the galaxy for such work. Their ability to improvise solutions to complex mechanical problems is unmatched. Nixera brushed past both men, striding toward the ancestral hall with long, purposeful steps. I will see this for myself. Keld, assemble a medical team. The ancestral hall was one of the oldest and most sacred spaces in the palace. Its walls were lined with crystal memory matrices containing the preserved consciousness imprints of generations of Lamidian royalty, a living archive of the Empire's history and wisdom. Now, that solemn space was marred by the ungainly hulk of a maintenance vessel that had torn through the ornate ceiling, leaving a gaping hole through which the swirling gases of Azura Prime were visible. The ship itself was nothing like the elegant Lamidian vessels that Nixera was accustomed to. Where Lamidian technology favored graceful curves and transparent crystalline materials, this human vessel was all sharp angles, dull metal, and utilitarian design. Across its side, in several languages including Standard Galactic, were the words Stellar Solutions. No job too big, no problem too strange. As Nixera approached, her guard forming a protective perimeter around her, a hatch on the side of the crashed vessel slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Thick smoke billowed out, followed by a fit of very human coughing. A figure emerged from the smoke, waving a hand in front of his face. He was human, male, dressed in what appeared to be a standard gray jumpsuit now smudged with grease and soot. A tool belt hung low on his hips, and a patch on his chest identified him as Tyler. Well, the human said to no one in particular, his voice rough from the smoke. That could have gone better. He seemed completely unaware of the royal presence as he turned back to the ship and called out, "Vex, you alive in there, buddy?" A second figure stumbled out of the smoke. Not human this time, but a Nexian, a species known for their skills with quantum engineering. This one was small, barely reaching the human's shoulder, with 4 arms and silver-blue skin that shimmered under the hall's lights. I told you the graviton inverter was misaligned, Tyler, the Nexian said, his voice high and musical despite the clear annoyance in his tone. But did you listen? No, it will hold until we dock, you said. Stop worrying, you said. Yeah, Tyler replied, slapping the Nexian on the back with casual familiarity. Look on the bright side. We made it inside the palace. Just not quite through the front door. It was at this point that the human finally seemed to notice his surroundings, and the imposing figure of Queen Nixera standing before him, surrounded by her armored guard, her skin pulsing with barely contained fury. For a moment, there was absolute silence in the hall. The Nexian, Vex, immediately dropped to his knees, all 4 hands raised in a gesture of supplication. Your Radiance, forgive our intrusion. It was an accident. A terrible, unfortunate accident. Tyler, however, did not kneel. He did not even bow. Instead, he looked directly at Nixera, an act that had sent nobles from advanced civilizations running in terror, and smiled. It was not the practiced smile of a diplomat or the nervous grimace of someone facing execution, but a genuine expression that reached his eyes. Hi there, he said, as casually as if he were greeting a neighbor. I'm guessing from the fancy clothes and the scary guards that you're the boss around here. Sorry about your ceiling, and your floor, and whatever we broke in between. I promise we'll fix it all. Keld stepped forward, hand on his weapon. You will address her Radiance as Queen Nixera, sovereign of the Lamidian Empire, keeper of the eternal light, and guardian of the 27 realms. Tyler blinked. That's a lot of titles. He wiped his hand on his jumpsuit, which only succeeded in smearing the grease around, and then extended it toward Nixera. Tyler Grant. Lead mechanic. Nice to meet you. You're, Radiance. The audacity of the gesture, offering to shake hands with the sovereign of the Lamidian Empire as if she were some common administrator, sent a ripple of shock through the gathered guards and palace staff. Thalios looked as though he might faint, and even Keld seemed too stunned to react immediately. Nyxera stared at the outstretched hand, then at the human's face. His eyes were brown, a common color among his species, she knew, but there was something uncommon in them. No fear, no calculation, no desperate attempt to curry favor. Just a straightforward openness that she rarely encountered, especially directed at her. You, she said finally, ignoring the offered hand, have caused significant damage to a sacred historical site, endangered my staff, and interrupted important state business. What do you have to say for yourself? Tyler withdrew his hand and scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, we'll fix everything. It was the graviton inverter that failed, standard part, easy replacement, but I was trying to squeeze a few more hours out of it so we could finish the job before swapping it out. My bad judgment call. No one to blame but me. The simple acceptance of responsibility, without excuse or evasion, caught Nyxera off guard. In her experience, those who failed in her presence typically resorted to elaborate explanations, deflections of blame, or desperate pleas for mercy. Before she could respond, a palace attendant rushed forward. Your Radiance, 2 of our maintenance workers were in this section when the crash occurred. They are trapped beneath debris near the eastern wall. Nyxera's attention snapped to the direction indicated, where part of the hall's ornate wall had collapsed. Without hesitation, Tyler was moving, striding past the guards toward the rubble, his focus instantly shifting from the Queen to the emergency at hand. Vex, get the emergency kit, he called over his shoulder. And the portable lifter. Keld moved to intercept him, but Nyxera raised a hand, staying her captain. There was something in the human's purposeful stride that intrigued her. Reaching the collapsed section, Tyler immediately dropped to his knees, pressing his ear to the rubble. Hello? Can you hear me in there? A faint voice responded from beneath the debris. Tyler nodded to himself and began a methodical assessment of the situation, running his hands over the fallen sections of wall and ceiling, testing their weight and stability. Vex returned with what looked like a compact metal case and a device that resembled a flattened disc. Tyler took the disc first, placing it carefully against a large section of debris. This is a gravity manipulator, he explained, glancing up as Nyxera approached. It will reduce the mass of this section by about 80%, making it easier to move, but we need to be careful. Shift the wrong piece first, and the whole thing could come down harder. Nyxera found herself nodding. What do you need? If Tyler was surprised by her offer of assistance, he didn't show it. Another set of hands. When I activate this, we need to lift and slide this section to the right, not up. Up would be bad. Without waiting for her response, he turned to the device and made a few adjustments. On 3. 1, 2, 3. The gravity manipulator hummed to life, and Tyler gripped the edge of the debris. After the briefest hesitation, Nyxera knelt beside him, a queen in ceremonial robes joining a grease-stained human in the dirt, and added her strength to his. Together, they shifted the massive piece of wall, revealing a small cavity beneath where 2 Lamidian maintenance workers huddled, frightened but alive. Over the next hour, Tyler, Vex, and the palace emergency team worked to stabilize the crash site and treat the injured. Throughout it all, Tyler worked with a focused efficiency that Nyxera found herself reluctantly admiring. He spoke little, but when he did, his instructions were clear and precise. He showed no deference to rank or status in the crisis, treating royal physicians and common workers with the same respectful attention. When the situation was finally under control, Tyler approached Nyxera again, wiping sweat from his brow and leaving another smear of dirt across his forehead in the process. Everyone's accounted for, he reported. No serious injuries. Your medical team is top-notch. And what of your ship? Nyxera asked, gesturing to the crashed vessel. Tyler glanced back at it and winced. Fixable, but it will take time and parts. In the meantime, we still need to complete the maintenance on your atmospheric stabilizers. They were showing some pretty worrying fluctuations when we ran our initial diagnostics. Nixera narrowed her eyes. You crashed into my palace, damaged an irreplaceable historical site, and now you expect to continue working? Well, yeah, Tyler said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. You still need those stabilizers fixed, right? Unless you want the palace to start losing altitude. That would be bad. Like, really bad. The human's matter-of-fact assessment of the situation and his apparent unconcern with her royal displeasure was so unexpected that Nixera found herself momentarily at a loss for words. Before she could formulate a suitably cutting response, the palace trembled slightly and the lights flickered. Tyler raised an eyebrow. See? That would be the stabilizers entering the first stage of harmonic degradation. Next comes power fluctuations, then structural integrity warnings, and finally, he made a whistling sound while moving his hand in a downward spiral. You are saying the palace is in danger? Keld demanded, stepping forward. Not immediate danger, Tyler clarified. But yes, those stabilizers need work today. That's why we were called in the first place. Nixera made her decision quickly. Captain Keld, assign guards to escort Mr. Grant and his associate to the atmospheric control systems. Minister Thalios, arrange for temporary quarters for our guests until their vessel is repaired. She fixed Tyler with a piercing gaze. You will fix what you have broken, human, and complete the work you were contracted to do. Then you will leave my palace. Is that understood? Tyler gave a casual salute that would have horrified any military instructor. Crystal clear, Your Radiance. We'll have everything humming like new before you know it. As she watched the human walk away, chatting animatedly with the still nervous Vex, Nixera was struck by a strange realization. In all their interaction, from the moment he emerged from the crashed ship until now, Tyler Grant had not once shown fear of her. Not when she stood before him in her full royal regalia. Not when she spoke sharply to him. Not even when her skin pulsed with the bioluminescent patterns that most species instinctively recognized as a warning. It was refreshing and deeply suspicious. Captain, she said quietly to Keld, I want that human monitored at all times. And I want a complete background check. Find out everything there is to know about Tyler Grant. Do you suspect some plot, Your Radiance? Keld asked, his hand automatically moving to the hilt of his weapon. Nixera watched the retreating figure of the human mechanic. I do not know what to suspect, Captain, and that, in itself, is unusual enough to warrant caution. Over the next 3 days, the palace buzzed with gossip about the human repair technician. Stories spread rapidly through the staff. How Tyler had improvised a tool from scraps to reach a particularly difficult connector in the atmospheric systems. How he had taught the royal kitchen staff to make something called chili that had half the palace clamoring for the recipe. How he had spent hours explaining basic gravitational engineering principles to a group of wide-eyed Lamidian children who had been touring the palace. But what fascinated the palace dwellers most was Tyler's apparent immunity to Queen Nixera's legendary temper. Twice the queen had visited the atmospheric control center to check on the repairs, and twice she had left in a state that witnesses could only describe as baffled frustration rather than her usual towering rage. On the morning of the 4th day, Nixera summoned Keld to her private chambers. Well, she demanded without preamble. What have you discovered about our human visitor? Keld consulted his data tablet. Tyler Grant, age 29 standard years. Born on Earth, in a region called Montana. Trained at the Terran Mechanical Academy, graduated with honors. Has worked for Stellar Solutions for the past 7 years, with an impressive record of successful repairs across 12 different star systems. No criminal record. No political affiliations of note. No connections to any organizations or individuals that might wish harm to the Lamidian Empire. He paused. By all accounts, Your Radiance, he appears to be exactly what he claims, a skilled mechanic with a particular talent for adaptive problem-solving. That is all. Nixera pressed. There must be something more. No one is that straightforward. Keld hesitated. There is one personal note, Your Radiance. His personnel file mentions that he was raised primarily by his grandmother following the death of his parents in an industrial accident when he was young. His supervisor at Stellar Solutions commented that this background seems to have given him an unusual degree of emotional intelligence and an ability to read the room, I believe is the human phrase. Nixera paced to the viewport, her thoughts troubled. She had been certain there must be some ulterior motive behind the human's unusual behavior toward her. A political agenda, perhaps, or some elaborate scheme to gain influence in the Lamidian court. The possibility that he might simply be a straightforward person doing his job had not entered her calculations. The atmospheric systems? She asked, changing the subject. Completely repaired and functioning at optimal levels, Keld reported. In fact, according to our chief engineer, they are performing better than they have in decades. Grant apparently identified and corrected several inefficiencies that our own technicians had missed. And his ship? Repairs are nearly complete. He estimates they will be ready to depart by tomorrow morning. Nixera nodded, trying to ignore the unexpected twinge of disappointment she felt at this news. Very well. Arrange a formal acknowledgement of their service before they depart. Nothing elaborate. Simply the standard recognition ceremony for contractors who have served the palace. As you wish, Your Radiance, Keld said, bowing before he departed. Alone again, Nixera found her thoughts returning to the human mechanic. In her position, she was accustomed to being treated in one of two ways, with exaggerated deference born of fear, or with calculated charm designed to win her favor. Tyler Grant had done neither. He had treated her exactly as he seemed to treat everyone, with a straightforward respect that acknowledged her position without being defined by it. It was unsettling and intriguing. Meanwhile, in the atmospheric control center, Tyler and Vex were putting the finishing touches on their repairs. The Lamidian engineers assigned to assist them had long since given up trying to keep pace with Tyler's unorthodox but effective methods, and now simply watched in fascination as he made final adjustments to the system. "Hand me the quantum phase aligner," Tyler said, his voice slightly muffled as he leaned into an access panel that, according to the palace engineers, had been sealed for at least 50 years before he discovered and reopened it. Vex passed him the tool, shaking his head. "I still think you are taking unnecessary risks. The system is functioning within acceptable parameters now." "Acceptable isn't optimal," Tyler replied, the sound of the tool whirring from inside the panel. "And optimal is what they're paying us for. Besides, I found 3 microfractures in the secondary harmonization ring. Left unaddressed, they'd propagate within a year and then, boom." "Not boom," Vex corrected primly. "A cascading quantum failure would not explode. It would create a localized gravitational singularity that would." Yeah. Black hole. Palace gets sucked in. Bad day for everyone." Tyler interrupted, emerging from the panel with a grin. "The point is, it's fixed now. Probably buy them another century of stable operation before the next major overhaul." The lead Lamidian engineer, a tall, willowy figure named Soren, looked at Tyler with something approaching reverence. "How did you even know to check the secondary harmonization ring? It is not listed in any of our maintenance protocols." Tyler shrugged, wiping his hands on a rag. "Just a hunch. The power fluctuation patterns reminded me of a similar issue I saw on a Danubian cruise liner last year. Different technology, same underlying principle." He stretched, working out the kinks in his back. "Anyway, we're done here. System's running at 115% of its previous efficiency. All redundancies are active, and I've left detailed notes on future maintenance." Soren bowed deeply. "The palace is in your debt, Technician Grant." "Just doing my job," Tyler replied, looking slightly uncomfortable with the formality. "And call me Tyler, please." As they packed up their tools, Vex leaned closer to Tyler. "The Queen has been asking questions about you." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggest she finds you puzzling," Vex said. "Which is understandable. Your behavior toward her has been most unusual." "How so?" Vex gestured expressively with all 4 hands. "You speak to her directly. You make eye contact. You do not tremble or stammer or prostrate yourself. By Lamidian standards, your conduct borders on the revolutionary." Tyler laughed. "I'm just treating her like a person, Vex. A very important person with a really fancy title, sure, but still a person." "That," Vex said pointedly, "is precisely what no one does. Queen Nixera is not approached as a person. She is approached as a living embodiment of the Lamidian Empire. The protocol for interaction with her has 17 distinct stages, beginning with the preliminary prostration and ending with the gracious withdrawal." Tyler snorted. No wonder she's always yelling at people. Must get exhausting having everyone treat you like you're made of glass. He closed his tool case with a decisive snap. Anyway, doesn't matter now. Job's done, ship's almost fixed, and tomorrow we're out of here. On to the next impossible repair job. As Tyler spoke, a palace attendant approached, bowing deeply. Technician Grant, Her Radiance requests your presence at the evening meal in the Great Hall. Formal attire is required. Tyler blinked in surprise. Dinner? With the Queen? I don't think I packed formal attire in my crash landing survival kit. The attendant remained rigidly formal. Appropriate garments will be provided. You will be escorted to your quarters where you may refresh yourself, and then to the royal tailors for fitting. The meal begins at the setting of Azura Prime's third moon. After the attendant departed, Vex turned to Tyler with all four eyes wide. A personal invitation to dine with the Queen? This is unprecedented for someone of your station. Thanks for the reminder of my lowly status, Tyler said dryly. That is not what I meant, and you know it, Vex replied. This is a great honor, and potentially great trouble. The Queen's interest is rarely a comfortable thing. Tyler shrugged, but there was a thoughtful expression on his face that hadn't been there before. It's just dinner, Vex. What's the worst that could happen? With Queen Nixera? Vex said darkly. The list is longer than you might think. The Great Hall of the Lamidian Palace was a marvel of architectural ingenuity. Its ceiling was a vast dome of transparent crystal that offered an unobstructed view of Azura Prime's swirling atmosphere and the stars beyond. The walls were lined with luminescent mineral formations that shifted colors in response to the emotional atmosphere of the room, creating a living tapestry of light that complemented the mood of the gathering. The floor was polished stone that seemed to contain galaxies within its depths. And indeed, according to legend, dust from 1,000 worlds had been incorporated into its making. Tyler entered this magnificent space feeling distinctly out of place despite his new attire. The royal tailors had worked minor miracles, creating formal wear for him in mere hours. The garment was somewhere between a robe and a suit, made of a fabric that seemed to capture and amplify light, giving him a subtle glow. It was surprisingly comfortable, though Tyler had drawn the line at the ceremonial headdress they had tried to add. The hall was filled with Lamidian nobility and high-ranking officials, all dressed in their finest regalia. As Tyler was escorted through the crowd, conversations paused, and heads turned to track his progress. He heard the whispers follow him. The human mechanic spoke directly to Her Radiance. Not even a proper bow, bravery, or madness. At the far end of the hall, Queen Nixera sat upon a raised dais, her throne a masterpiece of crystalline artistry that caught and refracted light in hypnotic patterns. Tonight she wore robes of deep azure, embroidered with what appeared to be actual starlight, pinpoints of brilliance that shifted and moved as if mapping the motion of real celestial bodies. Her silver-white hair was arranged in an intricate style that incorporated delicate chains of luminescent gems, and her natural bioluminescence pulsed in gentle patterns beneath her translucent skin. Despite himself, Tyler felt his breath catch. Nixera's beauty was otherworldly in the most literal sense, a reminder that for all their superficial similarities, she was a being evolved under different stars, shaped by forces humans had only begun to understand. The Majordomo announced his arrival with a flourish. Tyler Grant of Earth, lead technician of Stellar Solutions, by invitation of Her Radiance. Protocol dictated that he should approach to within 10 paces of the throne, execute a formal bow, and wait to be addressed. Tyler had been thoroughly briefed on these requirements by a very anxious palace official during his fitting session with the tailors. He managed the walking part well enough, but his bow would have made a royal etiquette master weep. Still, it was a genuine effort, and more formality than he had shown previously. Nixera regarded him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Technician Grant, your work on our atmospheric systems has been satisfactory. From a queen renowned for her exacting standards, this was high praise indeed. Tyler inclined his head. Thank you, Your Radiance. It's a fascinating system, way ahead of its time. Whoever designed it was a genius. The original architecture was created by my great-grandmother, Queen Lyra, Nixera said, a note of pride in her voice. She was indeed a visionary in many ways. Well, She built something to last, Tyler replied. With proper maintenance, that system could keep the palace aloft for another 1,000 years, easy. A slight murmur ran through the assembled court at this casual exchange. Nixera silenced it with a glance before returning her attention to Tyler. "You will join me at the high table," she announced, gesturing to the long table positioned perpendicular to her throne. "The evening meal is about to begin." This was clearly another unexpected honor, judging by the surprised expressions of the courtiers. Tyler found himself seated at Nixera's right hand, a position typically reserved for visiting dignitaries of the highest rank or members of the royal family. The meal that followed was an education in Lamidian cuisine and culture. Each course was presented with elaborate ceremony, the dishes ranging from familiar concepts rendered alien by their ingredients to completely foreign culinary constructions that Tyler couldn't begin to categorize. He approached it all with the same open curiosity that seemed to define his character, asking questions about the foods and sharing stories of memorable meals from his travels across the galaxy. Gradually, the formal atmosphere at the high table began to relax. Tyler's natural ease seemed to spread to those around him, and even Nixera found herself drawn into the conversation, explaining the historical significance of certain traditional dishes. "This one," she said, indicating a luminescent blue spheroid that hovered slightly above its plate, "was created to commemorate the stellar concordat that ended the war with the draconian hegemony 3 centuries ago. The suspension effect represents the delicate balance of power maintained by the treaty." Tyler carefully captured the floating dish with his fork, a feat that impressed the watching nobles. "In my experience," he said as he tasted it, "the most impressive thing about diplomacy isn't making the agreements, it's maintaining them. Kind of like mechanical systems that way." Nixera raised an eyebrow. An unusual comparison. "Not really," Tyler said, warming to his subject. "Both require constant attention, regular maintenance, and a willingness to adapt to changing conditions. Ignore the small problems, and eventually you're facing a catastrophic failure." "And are you a student of diplomatic history as well as mechanical systems, Technician Grant?" Nixera asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Not formally," Tyler admitted. "But 7 years of working on everything from luxury cruise liners to military vessels gives you a pretty good tour of the galaxy and its politics. You learn to read between the lines." He grinned. "Plus, it turns out that people will say just about anything when they think you're just the repair guy and not really listening." This drew a genuine laugh from Nixera, a sound so rare that several nearby attendants nearly dropped their serving trays in shock. As the meal progressed, Tyler noticed something curious. Whenever the conversation turned to matters of state or policy decisions, Nixera's bioluminescence would intensify, the patterns beneath her skin shifting to faster, more agitated rhythms. Yet her voice and facial expressions remained carefully controlled, revealing nothing of this inner turbulence. During a brief lull in the conversation, as servers cleared one course and prepared for the next, Tyler leaned slightly closer to Nixera and spoke in a lower voice, pitched for her ears alone. "You know, on my homeworld there's an old saying, 'Heavy is the head that wears the crown.' Looks like it translates pretty well across species." Nixera's luminescence flickered in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Just that ruling an empire seems like a lonely job," Tyler said with a shrug. "Everyone either wants something from you or is terrified of you. Must be exhausting." For a moment, Nixera's carefully composed expression slipped, revealing a flash of something genuine. Surprise, certainly, but perhaps also a hint of relief at being seen so clearly. She recovered quickly, but not before Tyler caught the change. "Your observation is not without merit," she said carefully. "The responsibilities of sovereignty are considerable." "Yeah, I figured," Tyler nodded. "Just wanted you to know, the way your skin lights up when you're stressed? I noticed. Thought you might want to be aware of it. Could be useful in negotiations to know when you're broadcasting your emotions." Nixera stiffened. "My bioluminescent patterns are a natural feature of Lamidian physiology. They do not." "I'm not criticizing," Tyler interrupted gently. "Just making an observation. Professional hazard. I notice patterns, especially in systems trying to maintain equilibrium under stress." Before Nixera could respond to this remarkable statement, both for its insight and for the fact that Tyler had interrupted a queen mid-sentence, an act that would have sent most courtiers to the dungeons. There was a commotion at the entrance to the Great Hall. The majordomo announced with evident discomfort, "The most serene and mighty Prince Valerian of the Astral Dominion, heir to the Celestial Throne, commander of the Quantum Fleet, guardian of the Eternal Flame, and suitor to her radiance, Queen Nyxera." A tall, imposing figure strode into the hall, surrounded by an entourage of elaborately dressed attendants. Prince Valerian was undeniably handsome by most galactic standards, his features sharp and aristocratic, his bearing proud and confident. He wore a uniform of midnight blue adorned with what appeared to be actual stars, twinkling and shifting across the fabric. At his hip was a ceremonial weapon that practically hummed with contained energy. The entire hall rose to their feet, all except Nyxera, who remained seated, her expression suddenly cold and closed. "Your Radiance," Prince Valerian called across the hall, his voice resonant and clearly trained for public speaking. "I come before you to renew my suit, as is my right by the ancient accord between our realms." Nyxera's bioluminescence flared bright red, though her face remained impassive. "Prince Valerian, your arrival was not announced to my court." "A minor oversight, surely," Valerian replied, approaching the high table with confident strides. "One that pales in comparison to the importance of our potential union. The joining of Lumideria and the Astral Dominion would create the most powerful alliance the galaxy has ever known." As Valerian drew nearer, Tyler could see that beneath the prince's confident exterior was a calculation that reminded him of predatory creatures he'd encountered on various worlds, always measuring, always assessing for weakness. The prince's eyes flickered briefly to Tyler, noting his privileged position at the queen's side, before dismissing him as irrelevant. "You honor us with your presence, Prince Valerian," Nyxera said, her tone suggesting exactly the opposite. "However, as you can see, we are in the midst of a formal dinner. Protocol demands that unexpected guests, even those of your stature, be properly received at a more appropriate time." It was a clear dismissal, delivered with impeccable royal courtesy. But Valerian seemed either unwilling or unable to accept it. "Surely a place can be made for me at your table, Nyxera," he said, dropping her formal title in a way that sent a visible ripple of shock through the court. "After all, our eventual union has been anticipated since our childhood. Why delay the inevitable?" Tyler watched as Nyxera's bioluminescence intensified further, now pulsing in rapid, angry bursts. Yet her face remained a mask of icy control. "Prince Valerian," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "you presume much. No formal betrothal exists between us, nor will one while I sit upon the Lamidian throne. Your suit has been rejected 3 times in accordance with formal protocol. This unsanctioned appearance constitutes a breach of diplomatic courtesy." Valorian's handsome face hardened. "You speak of protocol and courtesy, yet you seat a human mechanic at your right hand, while leaving the heir to the Astral Dominion standing like a common petitioner? Perhaps the rumors of your eccentricities are not exaggerated after all." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop several degrees. Nyxera rose slowly from her seat, her full height impressive even among the tall Lamidians. When she spoke, her voice was terrifyingly calm. "You have overstepped, Prince Valerian." Gravely, "My eccentricities, as you name them, include an insistence on being addressed with the respect due my station, particularly from those who claim to seek my hand. They also include the sovereign right to seat at my table whomever I choose, be they prince or technician." Her eyes narrowed. "A right you are testing severely at this moment." Tyler could see the dangerous direction this confrontation was heading. Valerian was clearly unaccustomed to rejection, and Nyxera's legendary temper was building toward an explosion that would likely have interstellar diplomatic repercussions. Without fully considering the wisdom of his actions, Tyler rose to his feet. "Your Radiance," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Perhaps I could surrender my place to Prince Valerian? I'm still pretty beat from all that repair work today, and I should probably turn in early anyway. Big day tomorrow, getting our ship space-worthy again." All eyes in the hall turned to him, some incredulous, some appalled at his casual intervention in a royal dispute. But Nixera's gaze was the most intense, her luminescent patterns shifting rapidly through colors that Tyler couldn't interpret. "Your consideration is noted, Technician Grant," she said after a moment, her voice precise. "But that will not be necessary. Prince Valerian was just leaving." Valorian's face flushed with barely controlled anger. "This is an insult that the Astral Dominion will not forget, Nixera. Your fixation on maintaining absolute control will leave you isolated and powerless. The future belongs to those willing to form alliances." "The future," Nixera replied evenly, "belongs to those who refuse to be intimidated or manipulated. Your alliance offers Lumideria nothing it cannot achieve on its own, while demanding sacrifices I am unwilling to make." She raised her hand in a gesture that was clearly a dismissal. "You may withdraw now, Prince, with what dignity you can muster, or my guards will escort you out. The choice is yours." For a tense moment, it seemed Valerian might escalate further. But a glance at the royal guard, who had moved subtly into position around the hall, apparently convinced him of the futility of such an action. With a stiff bow that barely met the minimum requirements of protocol, he turned and strode from the hall, his entourage scrambling to keep pace. As the doors closed behind the prince, a collective exhale seemed to pass through the assembled court. Nixera remained standing for a moment longer, her posture rigid, before gracefully resuming her seat. "My apologies for the interruption," she said to the table at large, her voice composed once more. "Let us continue with the meal." Conversation gradually resumed around them, but Tyler noticed that Nixera's bioluminescence continued to pulse in agitated patterns, even as she maintained a calm exterior. She barely touched the next course, and her participation in the table talk became increasingly minimal. After what seemed like an appropriate interval, Tyler leaned toward her again. "You know, there's a mechanical problem I've been puzzling over all day. Could use a fresh perspective. Would your radiance honor me with your thoughts on the matter? Perhaps somewhere less crowded?" It was a transparent excuse, and they both knew it. But it offered something Nixera rarely received, a graceful exit that preserved her dignity while acknowledging her obvious discomfort. After a brief hesitation, she nodded. "I find technical challenges diverting. Minister Thalios, you will oversee the remainder of the evening in my absence." The elderly minister bowed deeply. "As your radiance commands." Tyler followed Nixera from the hall, aware of the speculative gazes tracking their departure, but resolutely ignoring them. They walked in silence through the crystalline corridors of the palace, royal guards keeping a discreet distance behind them. Eventually, they came to a small terrace that jutted out from the palace into the swirling atmosphere of Azura Prime. A force field contained a pocket of breathable air while offering an unobstructed view of the gas giant's magnificent storm systems and the stars beyond. It was clearly a private space, perhaps one of the few places the queen could find solitude in the vast, bustling palace. Nixera dismissed the guards with a gesture, ordering them to remain at the entrance to the terrace. Then she turned to Tyler, her luminescence still unsettled. "There is no mechanical problem, is there, Technician Grant?" Tyler smiled slightly. "Technically, there's always a mechanical problem somewhere. But no, not one that needed immediate attention." He moved to the edge of the terrace, looking out at the swirling gases of Azura Prime. "Thought you might need a moment away from all those eyes. Royal life doesn't seem to allow for much privacy." Nixera joined him at the terrace edge, her posture still formal but less rigid than before. "Your perception is uncomfortably accurate. Privacy is indeed a rare commodity for a sovereign. Must make it hard to just be a person sometimes," Tyler observed. "I am not just a person," Nixera replied, but there was a weariness in her voice that belied the automatic response. "I am the embodiment of Lumiderian sovereignty, the living vessel of my people's collective will and aspirations." "Yeah, I get that's the job description," Tyler said. "But underneath all those impressive titles, you're still a person, with good days and bad days, things you enjoy and things you hate, people who drive you crazy and, well, hopefully some who don't." Nixera was silent for a long moment, watching the play of colors in the atmosphere below. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, more reflective. "The courtship ritual you witnessed tonight, it has been repeated 17 times in the past 2 years, with 17 different suitors. each claiming to offer the perfect alliance, each seeing me not as an individual, but as a crown to be acquired, a resource to be exploited. Her luminescence pulsed in soft blues and purples now, less agitated than before. Prince Valerian is merely the most persistent and least tactful of them. 17 rejections? Tyler whistled. That's quite a record. What are you looking for that none of them are offering? The directness of the question might have offended Nixera from anyone else, but there was something in Tyler's manner, a genuine curiosity without judgment, that invited honesty. Someone who sees me, she said simply. Not the crown, not the empire, not the political advantage. Someone who can stand beside me without being diminished by my shadow, who brings their own strength without seeking to overpower mine. She shook her head. It is perhaps an impossible combination. Doesn't sound impossible to me, Tyler said. Just rare. And probably not something you're going to find in the kind of people who approach a queen looking for a political alliance. Nixera turned to look at him directly. And what of you, Tyler Grant? What do you see when you look at me? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning beyond its simple words. Tyler met her gaze steadily, without the fear or calculation she was accustomed to seeing. I see someone carrying a whole lot of responsibility, he said slowly, choosing his words with care. Someone smart and capable and probably pretty lonely, even surrounded by all these people. Someone who's had to be tough to survive in a position where showing weakness isn't an option. He smiled slightly. And yeah, I see a queen with incredible power, but that's just one part of who you are, not the whole picture. Nixera's bioluminescence shifted to a soft, steady glow, a pattern Tyler hadn't seen before. You are unusually perceptive for a repair technician. Part of the job, Tyler replied with a shrug. You can't fix something if you don't really see it. Not just the obvious problem, but the whole system, how all the parts interact, what's putting stress where. People aren't so different from machines in that way. A somewhat reductive perspective, Nixera observed, though without heat. Maybe, Tyler conceded. But it works for me. Helps me navigate all the different worlds and cultures we visit. Everyone's got their own version of programming, their own operating parameters. Figure those out, and you can usually find a way to communicate, to connect. And yet you do not follow the expected protocols when addressing me, Nixera pointed out. You do not bow properly, you speak directly, you make eye contact when most find it intimidating. Are these not violations of the operating parameters you claim to respect? Tyler laughed. I respect them, but I don't always follow them, especially when they seem counterproductive. All those protocols, they're designed to keep people at a distance, right? To maintain the mystique of royalty, but they also isolate you. He gestured around the empty terrace. Case in point. You're out here with me instead of at your own dinner because I'm probably the only person in that room who treated you like a real person today. The observation was so accurate and so boldly stated that Nixera found herself momentarily speechless. In the silence, Tyler seemed to realize he might have overstepped. Sorry, he said, running a hand through his hair. Sometimes I talk too much. Vex is always telling me I need to develop a better filter between my brain and my mouth. No, Nixera said slowly. Do not apologize for honesty. It is refreshing. She turned back to the view, her profile etched against the swirling backdrop of Azura Prime. Your ship will be ready tomorrow? Tyler nodded, accepting the change of subject. That's the plan. New graviton inverter is installed, and Vex has been working on the navigation system all day. Should be space-worthy by morning. And then you depart for your next assignment, Nixera stated. Yeah, got a malfunctioning terraforming array on Proxima 3 that's apparently turning the lake regions into jello. Should be interesting. Tyler glanced at her. Though crashing into a royal palace is going to be hard to top. A small smile curved Nixera's lips. Indeed, it has been an unusual interlude in palace routine. They stood in companionable silence for a time, watching the play of light and color in the atmosphere below. It was a peaceful moment, unmarred by the weight of protocol or expectation. Eventually, Nixera spoke again. I should return to my guests. My extended absence will already have spawned countless rumors among the court. Let me guess, running away with the dashing human repair technician is probably high on the list? Tyler suggested with a grin. Nixera's luminescence flickered in what might have been amusement. More likely they assume I have had you executed for some imagined offense against royal dignity. She moved toward the terrace entrance. Thank you, Tyler Grant, for the momentary respite. It was valued. Tyler bowed, and this time the gesture seemed more natural, a mark of genuine respect rather than enforced protocol. Any time, Your Radiance. Well, at least until tomorrow morning. As Nixera departed, escorted by her ever-present guards, Tyler remained on the terrace a while longer. Something about the interaction had left him thoughtful, a feeling he couldn't quite define settling in his chest. Getting attached to a queen is definitely not in the repair manual, he murmured to himself as he finally turned to leave. Good thing we're out of here tomorrow. The following morning dawned with the peculiar golden light that filtered through Azura Prime's upper atmosphere. Tyler and Vex were at the docking bay early, making final preparations for their departure. The crashed maintenance vessel had been expertly repaired, partly through their own efforts and partly with the assistance of the palace engineering staff, who had proven both knowledgeable and eager to learn from the unorthodox human methods. Primary systems check complete, Vex reported, all four of his hands moving across different control panels simultaneously. Navigation aligned, gravitational stabilizers at optimal function, fuel cells charged to 97% capacity. Good enough, Tyler said, securing the last of their equipment in the storage compartments. Let's wrap this up and get moving. That terraforming array on Proxima 3 isn't going to fix itself. As they worked, a palace attendant approached, bowing deeply. Technician Grant, Her Radiance requests your presence in the Sovereign's chamber immediately. Tyler frowned, glancing at his chronometer. Right now? We're scheduled for departure in less than an hour. The Queen's summons supersede all scheduling considerations, the attendant replied, his tone suggesting that this should be obvious to anyone with a functioning brain. Vex looked at Tyler with concern. What did you do? Nothing. At least, I don't think so. Tyler sighed, wiping his hands on a rag. Fine, I'll go see what this is about. Keep prepping the ship. Hopefully this won't take long. The Sovereign's chamber was not the throne room where public audiences were held, but a smaller, more intimate space where the monarch conducted the day-to-day business of ruling. It was still impressive by any standard, with walls of polished crystal that shifted colors subtly with the changing light, and a ceiling mapped with an accurate real-time representation of the galaxy, stars and planets moving in their actual orbits. Nixera sat not on a throne but at a large desk of some dark, polished material that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. She was dressed more simply today, in what Tyler assumed was the Lamidian equivalent of business attire, still elegant and clearly expensive, but designed for functionality rather than ceremony. As Tyler entered, he noticed that the room was empty of other attendants or officials. Just the Queen, and a pair of royal guards positioned discreetly by the door who withdrew after his arrival, leaving them alone. Your Radiance, Tyler said, offering a bow that, while still not technically perfect, showed he was making a genuine effort. You wanted to see me? Nixera gestured to a chair opposite her desk. Sit, please. There is a matter I wish to discuss before your departure. Tyler sat, trying to read her expression. Today, Nixera's bioluminescence was calm, the patterns beneath her skin flowing in gentle waves of soft blue and violet. Whatever this meeting was about, she didn't seem angry, which he took as a positive sign. I have received the final report on the repairs to our atmospheric stabilization system. Nixera began, her tone formal but not cold. The improvements you implemented exceed our original specifications by a significant margin. The chief engineer informs me that you have extended the operational lifespan of the system by approximately 120 years beyond previous projections. Glad to hear it, Tyler said. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. Deserves to be kept in top shape. Indeed. Nixera's fingers tapped lightly on the surface of her desk. This leads me to a proposal I wish to put before you. The palace has many systems of similar antiquity and complexity. Our current maintenance staff, while competent, lacks the innovative perspective you have demonstrated. I would like to offer you a position as chief technical advisor to the royal household, overseeing the maintenance and improvement of all palace systems. Tyler blinked, genuinely surprised. You want to hire me? Permanently? The initial contract would be for a period of 5 standard years, with the option for renewal by mutual agreement, Nixera clarified. The compensation would, of course, be substantial, and you would be provided with quarters appropriate to your station within the palace. That's a very generous offer, Tyler said slowly. But I already have a job. A good one that I enjoy, with people who depend on me. Your current employer would be compensated for the premature termination of your contract, Nixera said dismissively. And your skills would be put to far better use here than traveling from system to system performing miscellaneous repairs. Tyler frowned slightly. With all due respect, Your Radiance, those miscellaneous repairs keep a lot of people safe and their lives running smoothly. I like the variety, the challenge of never knowing what problem I'll face next. He leaned forward. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm cut out for palace life. All the protocols and politics, it's not really my style. Nixera's luminescence flickered briefly, though her expression remained neutral. You would be granted certain exemptions from standard court protocol in recognition of your unique position and background. Tyler smiled slightly. You mean I'd still be allowed to talk to you like a normal person? A hint of answering amusement crossed Nixera's face. Within reasonable limits, yes. Your directness has proven unexpectedly valuable. I'm flattered, really, Tyler said. And the offer is incredibly generous. But my life is out there. He gestured vaguely upward, indicating the stars beyond the palace. Not in one place, no matter how impressive the place is. Nixera was silent for a moment, studying him with those luminous eyes that seemed to see more than most. When she spoke again, there was a different note in her voice, less formal, more personal. Last night, you spoke of seeing me as a person beneath the crown. It is a rare perspective, and one I find I do not wish to lose entirely. Her luminescence shifted to softer hues. Perhaps there is a compromise to be found. A consulting arrangement, perhaps. You would maintain your position with Stellar Solutions, but would return to the palace periodically to assess and advise on our systems. Tyler considered this, genuinely touched by the gesture and what it revealed of Nixera's thoughts. That could work. Though I have to warn you, my schedule can be unpredictable. Emergencies happen, and they don't usually check my calendar first. I am familiar with the concept of unexpected crises, Nixera said dryly. The arrangement would necessarily be flexible, but it would establish a formal connection, a reason for your periodic return. An informal connection? Tyler asked boldly. Is that part of what you're looking for too? Nixera's luminescence pulsed once, brightly, before settling again. You presume much, Technician Grant. Just making an observation, Tyler said with a small smile. Based on available data, your observational skills are keen, Nixera acknowledged after a moment. Though perhaps your conclusions require additional verification. That sounds suspiciously like an invitation to stick around and find out, Tyler said. Perhaps it is. Nixera rose from her desk, moving to the large viewport that dominated one wall of the chamber. You said yesterday that I needed someone who sees me, not just the crown, who can stand beside me without being diminished or seeking to overpower. In our brief acquaintance, you have demonstrated those qualities more consistently than any of the 17 formal suitors who preceded you. Tyler joined her at the viewport, careful to maintain a respectful distance. I'm just being myself. No agenda, no political calculations. Maybe that's refreshing in a palace environment, but it doesn't make me qualified to, what? Court a queen. No, Nixera agreed. It does not, by any traditional measure. You have no noble lineage, no political power, no vast wealth or military might to offer as alliance. By every standard my advisors would recognize, you are supremely unsuitable. Her luminescence brightened. And yet, in the ways that matter to me personally, you have shown more potential in 3 days than any others have in years of formal courtship. That's either a stunning compliment to me or a pretty sad commentary on your dating pool, Tyler observed. This drew an actual laugh from Nixera, the second he'd managed to elicit in their brief acquaintance. Perhaps both are true. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the swirling patterns in Azura Prime's atmosphere below them. Finally, Tyler spoke again. I can't stay now. I have commitments, a contract to fulfill, people counting on me. But this consulting arrangement, I like the idea. It gives us time to figure out whatever this is. He gestured between them. No pressure, no formal expectations. Just a chance to get to know each other better and see where it leads. Nixera nodded, her expression thoughtful. A measured approach. More wisdom than I expected from someone who admitted to installing a faulty graviton inverter rather than replacing it immediately. Hey, I learned from my mistakes, Tyler protested with a grin. Sometimes I even learn fast enough to avoid crashing into royal palaces. A skill I hope you maintain, Nixera said dryly. She extended her hand, an unusually human gesture coming from her. Then we have an agreement? Tyler took her hand. It was cooler than a human's, the skin finer, almost translucent, with the bioluminescence visible beneath like veins of living light. We have an agreement. As their hands touched, Nixera's luminescence suddenly intensified, rippling across her skin in patterns Tyler hadn't seen before. Bright, rapid pulses of gold and azure that seemed to leap between them like static electricity. She jerked her hand back as if burned, her eyes wide. What was that? Tyler asked, concerned. Are you okay? Nixera stared at her own hand, then at Tyler, an expression of genuine shock on her face. That was unexpected. She collected herself visibly. It appears there may be some unanticipated biochemical compatibility between our species. A rare phenomenon, but not unknown in xenobiological literature. Biochemical compatibility? Tyler repeated. That sounds either really scientific or like a fancy way of saying we have chemistry. Both interpretations have merit, Nixera admitted, a hint of color rising to her cheeks, another reaction Tyler hadn't seen from her before. The moment was interrupted by a chime from Tyler's communicator. He checked it with an apologetic glance at Nixera. That's Vex. Ship's ready for departure, and we have a launch window in 20 minutes if we want to make optimal transit time to Proxima 3. Nixera nodded, visibly regaining her royal composure. Then you should not delay. The terms of our arrangement will be formalized and transmitted to you within the day. She hesitated, then added, when might your duties allow you to return? The work on Proxima 3 should take about 3 weeks, Tyler said. After that, we have scheduled maintenance on the Arcturian trade fleet. So, 6 weeks, give or take. Assuming no major emergencies pop up in the meantime. 6 weeks, Nixera repeated, as if testing the time frame. Very well. I shall expect your return then, Technician Grant. For a comprehensive assessment of our systems, of course. Of course, Tyler agreed, unable to suppress a smile at the transparent pretext. Purely professional. Nixera's luminescence pulsed once in what Tyler was beginning to recognize as amusement. Indeed. Until then, you may take your leave. Tyler bowed, more gracefully than his previous attempts. Until then, your radiance. As he turned to go, Nixera's voice stopped him at the door. Tyler. He looked back, surprised by her use of his first name without title. Safe travels, she said simply. Thanks, he replied. Try not to terrify too many suitors while I'm gone. Her lips curved in a small smile. I make no promises. The 6 weeks of Tyler's absence proved to be some of the most productive and confusing of Nixera's reign. Productive because she channeled her restless energy into a series of long-deferred reforms to Lumidirian civil administration, surprising her council with her sudden interest in the minutiae of governance. Confusing because the court couldn't help but notice their sovereign's changed demeanor, less prone to explosive anger, more likely to listen fully before rendering judgment, and occasionally caught smiling at seemingly nothing. Rumors flourished, of course. Some speculated that the queen had undergone some secret medical procedure to alter her temperament. Others whispered that she had experienced a religious epiphany during private meditation. A particularly persistent story suggested that she had been replaced by a doppelganger as part of an elaborate conspiracy. The truth, that she was simply looking forward to the return of a certain human repair technician, would have seemed more far-fetched to most courtiers than any of these theories. For his part, Tyler found his thoughts returning to the Lumidirian palace and its imposing queen with surprising frequency. Vex noticed, of course, and alternated between teasing him mercilessly and offering genuine concern about the wisdom of becoming entangled with galactic royalty. Monarchs are not like ordinary people, Tyler, Vex warned during a rare, quiet moment between repair jobs. Their lives are not their own. Their choices are constrained by traditions and expectations that span centuries. Nixer is not exactly traditional, Tyler pointed out, focusing on the delicate circuitry of the navigation system they were repairing, which makes her more unpredictable, not less complex. Vex countered, using two hands to hold components steady while his other two manipulated tools with precision. And her reputation for volatility is well earned. She has dismissed high ministers for grammatical errors in official correspondence. Tyler shrugged. People act out when they feel trapped. Put anyone under enough pressure without a release valve, and eventually they explode. Vex's four eyes blinked in synchronized exasperation. You speak as if the sovereign of the Lumidurian Empire were a faulty pressure regulator. The principles aren't that different, Tyler insisted. Identify the source of the stress, create appropriate pathways for release, maintain regular preventative maintenance. He grinned. In this case, preventative maintenance might involve making sure she has someone who treats her like a person instead of a living monument. And you have appointed yourself to this role? Vex asked skeptically. The human mechanic who will fix a queen? Tyler's expression grew more serious. Not fix. Never fix. People aren't machines to be fixed. But sometimes they need someone who sees what's really going on, who isn't afraid to say it out loud. Someone who doesn't run away when things get intense. Like when a queen loses her temper? Exactly, Tyler nodded. Do you know what I saw when Nixera was yelling at everyone? Someone under incredible pressure with no safe outlet. All those courtiers just absorb it, scurry away, and talk behind her back. No one ever just acknowledges what's happening. Vex sighed, a melodious sound in the Nexian fashion. Tyler Grant, eternal optimist and self-appointed emotional engineer to the stars. Just remember that when human mechanics make mistakes, machinery breaks. When those involved with royalty make mistakes, wars can start. The warning was well-intentioned, but it didn't diminish Tyler's anticipation as the end of the 6-week period approached. The work on Proxima 3 had been completed ahead of schedule, despite the bizarre chemical reactions in the terraforming array that had indeed been turning lakes into a jelly-like substance. The Arcturian trade fleet maintenance had gone smoothly as well, with only routine issues discovered and addressed, which meant that exactly 6 weeks after his departure, Tyler found himself piloting the maintenance vessel back toward the gleaming spectacle of the Lumidurian Palace, floating in the upper atmosphere of Azura Prime like a constellation given physical form. You are unusually fastidious about your appearance today, Vex observed as Tyler checked his reflection for the third time in the ship's small hygiene compartment. Just trying to look professional, Tyler replied, smoothing his freshly trimmed hair. Of course, Vex agreed, his tone making it clear he believed nothing of the sort. And the new uniform? Also merely professional consideration. Tyler glanced down at the Stellar Solutions jumpsuit he wore, identical to his usual work attire except for being brand new and custom-fitted rather than the standard-issue version. Company policy. Got to represent the brand properly when dealing with high-profile clients, Tyler said, the excuse sounding weak even to his own ears. Naturally, Vex nodded solemnly. And I suppose the nervousness in your voice is also standard company protocol? Shut up and handle the docking procedures, Tyler retorted without heat. And try not to crash us into the palace this time. That, Vex reminded him primly, was entirely your fault. The docking process went flawlessly this time, their ship settling gently into one of the atmospheric bays with barely a tremor. As the airlock cycled, Tyler was surprised to see not a standard palace attendant waiting to receive them, but Minister Thalios himself, the elderly royal matchmaker looking distinctly uncomfortable in the utilitarian environment of the docking bay. Technician Grant. Thalios greeted him with a formal bow. Her Radiance has asked me to convey her regrets that she cannot greet you personally upon your arrival. An unexpected diplomatic situation requires her attention. You are to proceed to your assigned quarters to refresh yourself after your journey, and then to join her in the celestial garden at sunset. Is everything okay? Tyler asked, concerned by the mention of a diplomatic situation. Thalios hesitated. It is a sensitive matter, not a crisis, precisely, but a situation requiring the Queen's direct attention. I am not at liberty to discuss the details. Tyler nodded. understanding the constraints of Thalio's position. Of course, we'll get settled, and then I'll head to the garden as instructed. As they were escorted through the palace, Tyler noticed subtle changes since his last visit. The atmosphere seemed somehow lighter, the staff less visibly tense. There were more people in the corridors, and they moved with purpose but without the fearful scurrying he remembered from before. Even the palace guards seemed more relaxed in their vigilance. The quarters assigned to Tyler were far more luxurious than he had anticipated. A spacious suite with views of Azura Prime's spectacular sunsets, furnished with a blend of Lumiderian artistic sensibilities and human practical comforts. It was clear that considerable thought had gone into making the space welcoming for him specifically. I believe, Vex observed as he examined the accommodations, that we can safely conclude the Queen's interest extends beyond your mechanical expertise. Tyler didn't bother denying it this time. Yeah, looks that way, he agreed, running a hand along the smooth surface of what appeared to be a custom-built workbench, equipped with tools specifically suited to human hands. After refreshing himself and changing into slightly more formal attire, though still practical by his standards, Tyler made his way to the Celestial Garden as directed. It was a part of the palace he hadn't visited during his previous stay, located at the very top of the central spire. The garden lived up to its name. Open to the sky above, protected only by a thin force field that kept the atmosphere in while leaving the view unobstructed, it was a living tapestry of plants from across the galaxy, many of which seemed to glow with their own inner light. Pathways wound between floating platforms of vegetation, and water flowed in impossible directions, creating three-dimensional waterfalls that seemed to defy gravity. Above it all, the first stars of evening were becoming visible as Azura Prime's sun sank below the horizon in a spectacular display of color. Tyler found Nyxera standing near the center of the garden, her back to him as she gazed out at the sunset. She wore simpler robes than he had seen her in before, though still obviously royal in their quality and design. Her silver-white hair was loose today, falling in waves down her back, woven with small luminescent gems that mirrored the stars appearing overhead. He approached quietly, not wanting to startle her, but she spoke without turning. "You are punctual, Tyler Grant." Another unexpected quality. Tyler smiled. Professional habit. Clients get nervous when the repair technician is late. They start imagining all sorts of catastrophic failures in the meantime. Nyxera turned to face him, and Tyler felt a moment of genuine awe. Her bioluminescence was radiant, pulsing with warm golden hues that seemed to reflect the sunset itself. 6 weeks and 2 days, she said softly. "You are late." "Unavoidable delay," Tyler explained. "Asteroid storm near the Arcturus system. Had to take the long way around." Without warning, Nyxera closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him in an embrace. Tyler froze in surprise for only a second before returning the gesture, holding her gently. "I have missed your directness," she whispered against his shoulder. "And I've missed your honesty," he replied, feeling the strange, pleasant warmth of her bioluminescence against his skin. When they separated, Nyxera's expression was serene but determined. "The diplomatic situation that prevented me from greeting you. Prince Valerian has returned with a formal ultimatum. The Astral Dominion threatens sanctions if I do not accept his suit." Tyler frowned. "That's not diplomacy, that's bullying." "Indeed." Nyxera smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face. "Which is why I formally rejected his suit and announced my chosen consort to the council this morning." "You're what now?" Tyler blinked in confusion. "My consort. You, Tyler Grant." Nyxera's luminescence flared brightly. "Unless you object?" "That's fast," Tyler managed, his mind racing. "For humans, perhaps. Lamidians recognize compatible energy patterns instinctively." She took his hand, and again that strange connection flared between them. "Our traditions hold that when the sovereign's bioluminescence resonates with another's energy, it is not to be ignored." "What about the political fallout?" "The traditions? I am the queen," Nyxera said simply, "and I have learned from you that protocol serves us, not the reverse. The council has accepted my decision, surprisingly easily after witnessing the changes in my leadership these past weeks." Tyler looked into her luminescent eyes and made his decision. He pulled her close again, this time initiating the embrace himself. Then yes, he said. I accept on one condition. You dare place conditions on a queen? Nixera asked, but her tone was playful. I still take repair jobs sometimes. The universe needs fixing. Nixera laughed, a sound that made flowers throughout the garden pulse with responsive light. Accepted. We shall be unconventional together, my human mechanic. As the stars emerged fully above them, they sealed their agreement with a kiss that sent ripples of light cascading through the entire garden, a visible manifestation of the connection between them. A queen who had found someone who truly saw her, and a mechanic who had fixed not a machine, but a heart. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.